My best way to describe it is it literally looks like the Death Star from Star Wars. The Death Star from Star Wars. The Death Star from Star Wars.
In this video, I have an interview that I want to share with you guys that I just finished doing this afternoon from a young lady that resides down here in Sierra Vista, Arizona. Her and her entire family witnessed something during the overnight hours of November 16th, just a few weeks ago. Here in the skies above Arizona, they saw what looked like a rogue planet or a dark moon in the sky, behind the moon, traveling through the sky kind of at the same speed of our known moon. But this thing here that they were describing was not our moon. They said it almost looked like a rogue planet. They didn't know how else to describe it. And in this video, you're going to hear firsthand what Mandy saw in the nighttime sky above southern Arizona back on November 16th of 2022. And right here is the video that I did with Mandy just a few hours ago. Okay, today is December 8th. It's around 1 p.m. 2022. I'm on the phone with Mandy from Sierra Vista, Arizona. And Mandy saw something incredible in the sky from Sierra Vista during the overnight hours of November 16th. And I have Mandy on the phone. Hello, Mandy.
Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Good. That's great to hear. What I'd like to do, I got the pictures that you sent me of what you're describing as a moon that you saw in the nighttime sky from Sierra Vista, Arizona at 2:15 a.m. on November 16th. However, it was not the moon that we are all familiar with. Could you elaborate and share your experience with us, please, and what drew you outside at 2:15 and what you saw?
Absolutely. My dog actually woke me up. She needed to go out and use the restroom. I typically have to follow her out. She won't come back in. She's a bit stubborn. So I'm waiting on the porch for her and kind of stargazing. And I see the only thing that I could really describe as being possibly a rogue planet or another moon. It was an orb or a sphere in our eastern sky. It was slightly larger than the moon. It was about, 15 degrees off the horizon. And I believe the moon was located about 40 degrees in the sky at the time. I'd watched it for a while. It was about 30 minutes that I watched it. It didn't really move other than to follow the pace of the moon as it ascended into the sky. As it ascended in the sky, there were stars in the background behind the object. The object would cover the stars as it ascended with the moon.
Okay. So that's telling us there was something physical there if it was blocking out the stars.
Definitely.
Gotcha. Okay.
Definitely. It wasn't really, it wasn't reflective, but it was highlighted by, it was illuminated by the light of the moon. I watched it for a long time, just kind of wondering what I'm looking at. I decided to come inside and wake my husband up around 2:45. That was about 30 minutes after looking at the thing. He came out with me and confirmed that I wasn't crazy. I was really seeing something up there, and it was the size of the moon, and neither of us could identify it. I asked him what he thought it might be, and his only explanation was it looked like another planet. It seemed to be smooth. Didn't really have much texture to it other than like a crater or a dimple on the front of it that the moonlight kind of cast a shadow into. At that point, we decided to wake up our teenage children. We have a 14 and 16-year-old. Okay. We came in and got them and had them come out and look at it also because it's just, they needed to see it. It was very peculiar.
So they saw it as well.
Yeah.
So four different people saw this in the nighttime sky.
Yes.
Okay.
And my husband and the kids watched it for probably about 30 minutes themselves. I watched it for about a total of an hour. Okay. Once it was about the 40-degree angle in the sky, about where the moon was when I began watching it just seemed to disappear. It didn't shrink. It didn't fly off. It didn't anything. It literally just seemed to just vanish.
And it didn't make any noise. It was just kind of taking up space in the sky. Now the moon, now in the sky, the moon would have been in front of this thing, correct? And this would have been between the moon and the eastern horizon?
Yes. Okay. And it was seemingly in front of it by the way the moonlight was casting down upon the thing.
And the only reason you were able to see it is because of the moon. I looked on that night. The moon was a 51% illumination, so it was the moonlight that was casting on it that made it visible. It did not shine like a star. It didn't have any lights or moving, blinking lights. It was a dull, almost like a dark grayish black color.
Correct.
And it had kind of an ominous feel to it when you looked at it, or very.
It was very unsettling to see it in the sky. Very.
Wow. Okay, now everybody in your family saw this thing, and they're all describing the same thing as you. Some sort of what looked like a moon. It was about the same size as the moon. However, it wasn't illuminated like the moon. This thing was kind of dark. It was blocking out starlight. That was you could see stars, but when this thing was in front of stars, it would block out the stars.
Exactly.
And it would be basically a darker version of the moon, correct? If you had to describe it,
yeah. If I had to describe it specifically as something, I would say a slightly darker, smoother version of the moon is really what it looked like. And my best way to describe it is it literally looks like the Death Star from Star Wars. And it sounds silly to say that, but that's the only thing that I've ever seen that I can really say, because it even had the little dip in the front of it, the same sense. But it was just...
You've never seen anything like that, and you're trying to compare it to anything that looked like it.
Exactly.
And it is what it is. If that's what it looked like, that's what it looked like. That's what you guys all saw. It wasn't like you just saw it. It wasn't like it was just some reflection in a photo. Four people saw this, and you guys all described it the same way. There was only one way to describe it. Okay. It was
I mean, there was really only one description for what it was, and we were so convinced that it was some sort of a planet that my husband and I went out the next day and purchased a high-powered telescope and sat out and watched the stars all night the following night, waiting to see it again.
You wanted to see it again, yes.
Yeah, and we haven't seen it since.
And you haven't seen it since. Now, this thing couldn't have been and I'm just asking this question just to simply rule it out. It couldn't have been any type of mechanical, because people will ask. It couldn't have been a satellite. It couldn't have been...
No. Okay. No, nothing that's known to be in our orbit or anything man-made or mechanical in any kind of way. It was very much something that I cannot describe the origin of it.
So it wasn't
definitely not Starlink.
Okay, and it wasn't a man-made object.
No, there's no way that could have been a man-made object. It was way too big. Way too big.
Way too big, and made no sound.
None whatsoever.
And it behaved like a moon or a planet.
Yeah.
We've never been close to a planet other than our own, obviously, and the closest thing we've ever been to is the moon. So you're describing it as, and it was about the same size as the moon?
It was pretty much the same size as the moon, maybe just a degree larger, but it was about the exact same circumference in the sky to our naked eye as the moon was at the time.
Just much darker. Now, if the moonlight hadn't have been there, would you have been able to see it?
I don't think that we would have, because the bottom curve of it that was not illuminated just kind of blended with the rest of the sky. It was as if the moon wasn't washing light over it, that it would just blend with the background.
Yeah, okay. All right. Wow, that's an incredible story. And have you been looking each night ever since then?
I have.
Yeah.
I have, and we've got a security system, and I've actually dedicated one of the cameras to that area of the sky and set it to record at the hours between where we saw it. But I've got it actually set from 1:30 to 3 a.m. just in case to give a window, and I check it every day, and I haven't seen anything since. Yeah.
And you observed it for almost an hour, and then it just kind of, did it move? Oh, did it take off? Did it just kind of disappear?
Nope, it just vanished. It was there, and then it was very slow. It wasn't like dink and it was gone. And that was while we were all watching it at the time. Okay. And my daughter's like, it looks like it's getting hazy. And I was like, I noticed that. And we're looking at it, and it was like, it literally, like, it just kind of got hazy and then just went invisible. And it was about the course of maybe like 10 seconds that it faded out, but it didn't zoom off. It didn't make it didn't change shape. It didn't anything. It just literally just kind of faded into invisible. It was the strangest thing.
But a strange haze went around at first, huh?
Yeah, it was like it was kind of like it, I don't even know how to describe it. Oh my goodness. It was like it went blurry, like your vision kind of.
Okay.
Like if your vision were to go blurry, but nothing else anywhere else went blurry. You know what I mean? It was just that thing kind of went blurry and then just blended back in with the background.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Now, I noticed in your photos that you shared with me, I could actually see stars in your photo. So that tells me that the skies were clear?
Yeah, the sky was completely clear that night. And it actually was roughly located in the leg of the Leo constellation. And as it moved with the moon through the sky, it covered the stars of the constellation. And then they would become visible again as it went past that star. So this thing was moving at about the same speed as our known moon? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, it kept pace with the moon. It kept the same distance between it and the moon.
Gotcha.
Throughout about 20 degrees of travel through the sky as it ascended below the moon, and then just, like I said, just vanished.
So this thing was rising slowly in the east behind the moon, and then kind of disappeared into a vapor, and the skies were crystal clear, no clouds anywhere.
No clouds, none whatsoever.
That is amazing. I wonder if anybody else saw it, and I'm hoping in this video that someone else hears this video and hears your story and saw the same exact thing. Now, would you say that it was as far away from your point of view as our moon is? Was it at least that far away? Was it closer, farther, or was it hard to tell?
I feel like it was close to the same distance as the moon by the way the light was hitting it. It appeared to be about the same distance from the moon and the same size as the moon. And the way the light washed over the top of it was pretty even.
Okay.
I don't know how to really explain that foreshadowing. It was pretty evenly hitting the top side of it where it was below the moon. So I feel like it was fairly close to the same distance.
So it basically one side of this object was completely in the dark, and the side that was closest to the moon had a slight glow or appearance to it. It wasn't illuminating light. It really was not even. It was more like it was absorbing light than illuminating. Gotcha. Okay. Wow. So how did you guys feel after you saw this?
We felt pretty shaken. I mean, our jaws were all kind of on the floor. We all just stood around for a moment. I mean, it was about 3:30 in the morning, like I said, when it disappeared. So we just kind of, we all realized we still have to go back to bed because tomorrow has to happen. And we just were somewhat dumbfounded, and everyone went to bed. The next morning we got up, and I'm like, okay, everyone with fresh brains, what do we think we saw last night? And everyone gave me the same feedback that, we think that's a planet. We feel like we should get something to see if we could observe it because it was close enough. Like we said, it was about proximity of the moon, and with a telescope you should be able to see details on the moon. So assumingly, if we got a decent telescope, we would be able to see it when it came back up. And once we realized that it was not necessarily a planet, that's when we kind of got the sinking feeling. I mean, looking at it was rather ominous because of the fact that it just shouldn't be there.
Right.
But knowing the next day when it didn't return like you would imagine a planet would if it had an orbit, that was kind of where we realized that it had to have been something else. And if it weren't a planet, what else would that have been?
Right.
So it's a little bit of a dooming feeling. I've been really, for lack of a better explanation, kind of paranoid of the sky at night. I go out, I wake up probably 4 times a night now, and I go out and I look at the sky briefly and glance around and then come back in and go to bed, and I'm just kind of waiting to see it again, really.
So you're familiar with the constellations, you're familiar with Pleiades. I've heard you mention those earlier when we were talking.
Yes.
And this was something that, in your opinion, should not have been there.
Absolutely. It wasn't by any means a star. And you can see in the photo, there are stars visible in the photo with the object, and you can see the difference between, our classic stars versus what we were looking at. And it was definitely by all means nothing that I've ever seen in our sky other than our own moon.
Right. Very fascinating. That is absolutely incredible.
Indeed.
Thank you for the photos. I'm going to present your experience in this video, and I'm going to share your pictures, and I'm going to do some work on the pictures to try to pull forward. But like you said, this thing isn't really casting light. It's dark. It is a dark object. It definitely is a dark object, and it's difficult to work with, but there is something there. There's totally something there. All right. Well, Mandy from Cochise County, Arizona, thank you so much for your story.
Absolutely.
Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Okay, I want to take you guys now to these sky camera anomalies. The first photos were submitted by Jonathan, and they're from Colorado. They go back to November of 2022, just a few months ago. But these are worth a second look. I've seen these for years, and 9 out of 10 times I dismiss these as reflections. But these I'm willing to take a second look at because you can see the obvious reflections in these photos of the sky. This is an FAA camera in Colorado, and the reflections are here, here, and then a smaller one here. And the smaller one up here seems to be inside of possibly another reflection or something else. I don't know. I can't imagine two reflections being right there in the same exact location. There's the sun, there's the large anomaly, and you can see the smaller reflection, and that's an obvious reflection, is causing an anomaly in the anomaly, which is kind of weird. There's another reflection right there. This is a view, once again, from Colorado back in November of 2022. And coming up, you're going to see yet another view of some sort of an anomaly in the camera, at least in the image. I don't know that that was specifically in the sky, but it does look unique. Let's put it that way. I don't see the other reflections in this image like we did in the first two. You can see the obvious reflections there and there. The larger anomaly is a topic for debate. Let's just put it that way, because it's showing some unusual features that you don't normally see with standard reflections. We've all seen reflections and glares and lens flares and things like that. This one is unique. I'll leave it at that. I've seen these for years, and I've always dismissed them as random shadows or reflections or glare, but this one is unique. I put it in different formats just to simply get a different look at this thing, whatever it may be. And right there, like Jonathan pointed out, it does appear to be reflecting sunlight, and this side over here looks like it's more in a shadow phase, almost like the moon's in a half moon phase. Well, that's kind of what this is behaving like it's reflecting light. And then he also sent me this. He said this was on live TV yesterday during the U.S. Masters golf tournament. The commentator said, well, that's an interesting cloud, talking about these photos here. And you can see here in the foreground a golfer getting ready to swing his golf club, and this appeared in the field of view of the camera. Again, I don't know if that was actually in the sky. I'm sure if it was, the golfer and his caddy over here would have noticed that huge, what looks like a mothership up in the sky. But I will say this, it is interesting, it is unique, and there's no obvious explanation for that.
One of the great natural shows on Earth, a total solar eclipse.
I see the red moon arising.
We have a moon that's just the right size and the right distance away to very neatly and precisely block out the sun.
I see trouble on the way.
And that moon, which was invisible in the sky, has suddenly shown itself to be there.
I see earthquakes and lightning.
It looks more like some black orb.
I know the end is coming
And I couldn't
soon.
see the moon before, and I couldn't see it after.
Don't go around tonight. Well, it's bound to take your life.
An orb ball spinning right above.
There's a bad moon on the rise. Don't go around tonight. Well, it's bound to take your life. There's a bad moon on the rise.
You wonder what the reaction was of the people who saw it, too, at that time. The sun worship that was so prevalent.